I'm Sammy Horowitz. I'm a former professional boxer, prisoner, drug addict, and gang member, and I'm a current Hollywood stuntman, playwright, and screenwriter. Stay tuned later on to hear my story. See you then.
Good afternoon. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to the very first Hinda Institute event, first annual Hinda Institute event. Originally, this event was supposed to be an in-person event where we would come together and meet and hear about the inspiring work of the Hinda Institute and honor some special individuals. There's an expression in Yiddish, a Mensch tracht und Gott lacht. Translation, a man thinks and God laughs. We have our plans, but God does as he wants to. So this event is taking place in this format, a virtual event. I was thinking about this a little bit, and I thought that this fits in very well with the mission of the Hinda Institute. We reach out to individuals who are isolated from the rest of society, and nobody wants to have anything to do with them. And we connect them. We connect them with their heritage, connect them with their religion, and we connect them with their communities. So it's very fitting that this event is taking place in such a format where we are all isolated in our own homes, yet we are connecting with others. So taking those who are isolated and connecting them. Now, the Hinda Institute, as you all know, it is named after my dear mother, Rebbitzin Hinda Scheiman. Just think it's funny that sometimes my children Google Hinda Institute. They want to find out a little bit more about what we do. And they always come to me with the computer, and they show me that they see a lot of pictures of cars. Because what happens is, when they search Hinda, Google returns results for Honda. So what I tell my children is, don't worry, one day the Hinda Institute is going to be so big, and it's going to be just the opposite. When people search for Honda, it's going to show results for Hinda Institute. So, growing up as a child in my home with my mother of blessed memory, and may he live and be well, my dear father, my siblings and I always knew not to ask any questions about the different guests who would grace our Shabbos table and our Sukkah and our Pesach Seder. We knew not to ask where our father Tati, where he knew them from, where he met them. And my mother gets the credit for inviting every child of God into her home. And she taught us some very special virtues. She taught us that we should not be judgmental, not judge anybody. We must be sensitive to everybody. And we should also not talk about other people. These are virtues that she taught my siblings and I. And she taught by example. And there's no wonder then that my siblings and I, we all are involved in this work, and especially myself and my two brothers who spend much of our time visiting those in isolation. We all visit clients of the Hinda Institute. I am sure my mother is smiling in heaven as we give out the award, the Hinda Mother of the Year Award. The Hinda Mother of the Year Award is being given this year to Mrs. Susan Warsaw. Now, I don't know Susan very well, but I know Susan's son very well. Her son Avery, I visit him every month. And the expression goes, the apple does not fall far from the tree. So what I know from Avery is a mensch, a real mensch, and we don't find that so often among the people we visit. To be such a mensch like that, we don't find it. It's rare. And likewise, Avery is very inspiring. I find it inspiring that he has such a great attitude, even during tough and difficult times that we should never know of. But Avery has a smile on his face, and he just has such a good attitude about it. He has a positive attitude about it. There's no doubt that just like my mother instilled special virtues in her children, Susan instilled these virtues in Avery. In addition, many of the people we see do not have support from their families. Avery has such support from his mother. His mother put her heart and soul into making his life better. And we are sure that the efforts will pay off, and Avery is going to have a very happy and successful life. It is my pleasure to award Susan with the Mother of the Year award. We will be presenting her with this beautiful pushka, a tzedakah box, which reads, the award reads, Hinda, Mother of the Year, Susan Warsaw, Ches Sivan, the 8th of Sivan, 5780, May 31st, 2020.
Thank you, Rabbi Binyomin Scheiman, for honoring me with Hinda's first ever Mother of the Year award. In your words, it is given to the mother who displays unconditional love, devotion, and tenacity in the face of great adversity. It has been a long and difficult journey, and I am flattered to have been considered. It is only appropriate to receive this award from Rabbi Scheiman, who has had the most interaction with Avery since March of 2016, when he was moved from Cook County Jail, during which time he was seen regularly for 16 months by Rabbi Scheiman. Upon the move to Stateville Correctional Center, Avery was processed in the Northern Reception and Classification Center. He subsequently moved to Shawnee Correctional Center in Vienna, Illinois for a couple of months, where he was seen by Rabbi Mendel Scheiman. As I had no contact with Avery for nearly a month when he was in Stateville, I was relieved to have gotten a call from Binyomin relaying Schneur's visit with Avery. It was Purim, and as it was described to me, Schneur was sitting cross-legged on the floor outside the cell, and Avery was inside the cell, also on the floor. The only contact was through a slot from which Avery received his meals. Through the slot, Schneur and Avery spoke, and the Megillah was read. This was the start of many visits by Schneur to Avery at Danville, and for the last few years, Dixon. Avery also was fortunate to have received holiday visits from Binyomin, mainly for holiday package drop-off. Avery first entered the system in April of 2013 for felony home invasion with a firearm. No one was hurt, nor did Avery know about the gun. However, he was considered complicit as it was guilt by association and subject to the mandatory minimum. He was out on bond for 1.5 years, in part through a plea deal that was made with the state in which he would testify with his co-defendants. The reality of knowing that he would be going to prison, faced possible repercussions for the testimony, and that his father, my husband Howard, was dying of ALS, led to a second case in November of 2014. This case was eventually reduced to a misdemeanor in Skokie, thanks to a wonderful judge. However, the first case remained at 26 in California, in which the not-so-wonderful judge and the state were never on the same page, and Avery remained incarcerated. Not only is Avery in prison, in a sense, my son Caleb and I are right there with him. Having undergone countless court dates at 26 in California and Skokie, 16 months of nearly weekly visits to Cook County Jail for a 15-minute, and if we were lucky, 30-minute visit after long travel and wait times. Then we were traveling 3 hours each way to and from Danville for a couple of years. Prior to COVID-19, there were monthly visits to Avery at Dixon, about 2 hours each way. Incarceration not only impacts the inmate, but the entire family. It is not unlike a terminal illness insofar as the patient and the family feel the pain. Just like a terminal illness, these individuals deserve to be treated with respect and understanding, as behind every inmate there is a story. In December of 2019, Avery put forth a motion to the Cook County State's Attorney to have a sentence reduced to changes in the juvenile sentencing. As was expected, there was no response. Simultaneously, Avery submitted a petition for executive clemency, citing similar cases, and that was accepted. Avery had a Skype interview with a legal representative from the Prisoner Review Board, and we submitted 55 letters of support to the PRB and the Cook County State's Attorney. A public hearing was to have been held on April 9th and has been postponed indefinitely due to COVID-19. We have contacted Governor Pritzker's and Lieutenant Governor Stratton's offices, reached out to political officials, community leaders, clergy, and attorneys in hopes of bringing forth our case to Governor Pritzker's legal team with the goal of clemency with a commutation of sentence. As for me, I could not be prouder of Avery for how he has accepted responsibility and his positive outlook. He is deeply remorseful and has undergone an amazing change, much in part to him maturing and seeing what we have gone through as a family. He has worked hard on his education, as limited as it is through IDOC, has become well-read, and has also become a budding painter, being self-taught. He interacts well with the prison staff and his fellow inmates, yet knows when to step back and not get involved. Avery has been living in the honors dorm for over a year. This housing unit has approximately 60 beds in which those inmates have earned the privilege of living there. Whenever possible, Avery has worked throughout his incarceration, to include his time at Cook County Jail. For over a year, Avery has been working in the administration building, where he has daily interactions with the officers and higher officials within the prison. This is a coveted position given to deserving inmates. What means the most to Avery is the love and support of family and friends. It does not take much, as Avery is appreciative of any gesture, be it phone calls, letters, emails, funding his commissary account, and above all, visits, which is the lifeblood for any inmate. I would not wish this experience on anyone, but it has taught me acceptance, patience, and perseverance, and tolerance. And there are many mothers just like me and many inmates like Avery who, although we come from different backgrounds, have this common bond. I hope sharing our story will in some way humanize our criminal justice system and show that no one is immune, not even a blonde-haired, blue-eyed young Jewish man from Glenview. Thank you again very much for this honor.
Thank you, Susan, for your warm words. And we bless you, all the rabbis of the Hinda Institute bless you, that you and your family should see only blessings, only good things. Before introducing the Hinda Hero of the Year, I'd like to share a personal story, a personal experience. Every month I visit 12 prisons, and it's a lot of driving. The second prison I visit, it's a Monday morning every month is in East Moline. East Moline is at the Iowa border. Those of you who know my father know that he is very, very punctual. This is something he taught us. So we know that whenever we go at the same time. It's the same day of the month, of the week usually, and usually around the same time. Anyway, I arrive at East Moline about 11 a.m. I come there and I ask for the chaplain, and I'm told that the chaplain is not there. He won't be there for a while, and there's a temporary chaplain filling in. Okay, the temporary chaplain comes, and I tell him why I'm here. Of course, he had no clue. The message was not given to him that I would be coming, so nothing was prepared. I told him that I'd like to see two people. Let's call them Mark and Steve. Those are not their real names. I want to see Mark and Steve. Chaplain says, okay, let me see what it's 11:15 by now. He tells me, okay, let me see what I can do. Okay, I'm sitting there, I'm waiting. At 11:30, 15 minutes later, the chaplain comes back. He says, Rabbi, this is the story. We can get you Mark. Mark can come see you. Steve he's in Seg. What's Seg? Seg is prison slang for segregation, meaning solitary confinement. So that's where Steve is, and that's where you go. For an offense within the prison system, you go to Seg. Okay. Chaplain, I ask him, you think I can see Steve? Could I go see him anyway? Let me see. Let me get back to you. Let me see. So I say, okay, go. Okay, I'm sitting there waiting, and 10 minutes later, it's 11:40 now. The chaplain comes back with Mark. He's there. He's ready to see me. And the chaplain tells me, if you want to go see Steve, I'll take you there. I say, okay, let me see. Let me see what I'm thinking to do. I say, you know what? I have to leave here in 20 minutes. At 12 o'clock, I have to leave. I have to be on my way to the next prison. I have 20 minutes here. If I go see Steve, I won't have any time for Mark. It's going to take me 20 minutes to go to Seg. So I say, okay, you know what? Forget it. I'll see Steve next time. Mark came here. Mark, let's talk. Mark overhears all of this, and Mark tells me, Rabbi, you got to go see Steve. I'm like, Mark, if I see Steve, I won't have any time to see you. Now, I know that Mark needs the support. Mark, in addition to being in prison, he's battling a terrible illness. Okay, Mark, I'm going to see you. He says, no, Rabbi, you got to go see Steve. He's getting, I say, Mark. He says, listen, Rabbi, Steve needs the support. I'll be okay. Steve needs the support. He's inside. Go see him. I say, okay. I go see Steve, and we put on tefillin with Steve in the little chuck hole through the door because he was behind the door. And later, Steve actually told me the next month that he was very unsettled before that, and he couldn't even sleep. He couldn't. As soon as myself and the chaplain visited him, right after that, he fell into the most peaceful sleep that he had in a while. At any rate, I walked away with a tremendous lesson from Mark, that sometimes you have needs. You need something very badly. He needs the support, but you realize someone else needs it more. Give to somebody else. Think about somebody else. If somebody else needs something, sometimes it takes self-sacrifice. So we learn so much. We're so inspired by these special souls. So our Hinda, I'd like to now take the opportunity to introduce our Hinda Hero of the Year, Zach Isaacman, who lived that life. And now he has a beautiful family. And he maintains his connection with his spirituality. And he has a wonderful job. And Zach is giving back to the community. We could not find a better candidate for the Hinda Hero of the Year award. And the award reads, again, we have another pushka we have here, a tzedakah box. Zach Isaacman, Hinda Hero of the Year. Zach Isaacman, Ches Sivan, 8th of Sivan, 5780. May 31st, 2020.
Hello, I'm Zach Isaacman, and I'm very humbly accepting this award. I prepared a few thoughts, and really the most predominant thought is that I wish my grandmother was here to see this. And not because this is a triumph for me. Actually, I believe that there's probably a lot more people, a lot more deserving of this award than myself. I'm very humbled by this, but really for the spirit of togetherness, motherhood, of triumph, of people coming together in the spirit of a never say die attitude. For good people in this world, like Rabbi Scheiman. My grandmother was born in Warsaw, Poland, and she very narrowly escaped the Nazis in the 30s. It was really just her nuclear family that made it out, and everybody else was gone. So she's definitely had some trials and tribulations in this world. I got to know Rabbi Scheiman through prison. I was dealt a great injustice, sentenced to 10 years for a shooting that unfortunately happened in self-defense. It took 4 years for my appeal to be won, and I was incarcerated that whole time. So coming out was a huge transition and trying to just pick up your life where it was left off after one day they say, hey, an injustice was done to you, was definitely a trial too. Rabbi Scheiman supported me so much through this, really gave me a lot of inspiration to continue to succeed, and I just felt like failure wasn't an option. The way the Russian concussion felt like failure wasn't an option. The way my grandmother felt like failure wasn't an option. The way the Jews in the Exodus felt like failure wasn't an option. The survivors of the Holocaust. You pick our oppressor and we've overcome. So that's really why I wish my grandmother was here. When my case was overturned, this state's attorney offered me time served if I would just plead guilty when I went back for my new trial. I sat in that county jail for 9 months, still fighting. Because to me, at that point, it was a lot about principle. But this ceremony, this spirit is very much about family, as much as anything. And while I was in there, my grandmother passed. My younger brother had joined the military. My sister got married and started having kids. My older brother married his wife. And life was passing me by. And really, the whole message is that right is right and wrong is wrong, but family is right. And that's what this is all about. So in honor of a people who would never say die, in honor of people like my grandmother, Rabbi Scheiman, the Russian concussion, I want to say thank you all so very much for blessing me with this award. And it'll be my life's work to live up to it and to keep paying that forward. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Zach, for your very inspiring words. I have been told that now is the time to present the Chaplain of the Year award. And it will be presented to none other than my father, my dear father and mentor, Rabbi Binyomin Scheiman. To be very honest with you, I was a little bit hesitant about giving this award to my father. I wasn't sure that we should be giving the Chaplain of the Year award to him. Let me explain. We're just calling him Chaplain of the Year. He started this organization 40 years ago, and at the time it was only serving a few individuals, and it was a small organization. And under his leadership for the past 40 years, it is now a huge institution. We are reaching every single Jewish client in the state, no matter what prison they're in, once a month, at least once a month they're getting visited. There's a lending library. We are lending many, many books to many, many individuals, and this is changing their lives. And last, a project that was just recently started, educational courses that are being provided for our clients. These courses have already been changing many lives. This is a huge organization, and this has all been spearheaded almost single-handedly by Rabbi Scheiman. And we're just going to call him merely Chaplain of the Year. It seemed a little funny to me. And the second hesitation was we're honoring him, giving him honor. Those of you who know Rabbi Scheiman know that honor is probably not even in his vocabulary. Honor, just imagine those who he was visiting. Imagine he promised that he would visit on a certain date. And then he was told, if you come to this and this event, if you cancel that visit, you come to another event, you will get more honor. Does anybody think Rabbi Scheiman would change his visit because of something else that would give him honor? No, he would stick with his commitment. Honor is not in his vocabulary. He doesn't do anything for honor. He does things because they're right. So we're going to honor him. It seemed funny to me. But then, thinking about it a little further, I said, you know what? That's the answer. The reason he was able to build the Hinda Institute and care so much for this population which others ignore is because he doesn't care about honor. Had he been looking for honor, he would have taken up a position in some other big organization, which he could have easily done. But because he wants to do the right thing, reaching every individual, and this is an inspiration of his mentor, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, that's why, because he is doing the right thing, not looking for honor, that's how he was able to build the Hinda Institute. So we will be giving the Chaplain of the Year award to Rabbi Scheiman, although, of course, it's much more than chaplain, and it's much more than just of the year. And as he said about the honor, he said, you know what, do what you got to do as long as it inspires people. Now, the first time I visited prisons with my father was actually when I turned 18 years old. They said, okay, I'm old enough, can you take me to prison? So this was I did a pre-Pesach trip visiting all of the prisons in Illinois with my father, delivering Pesach food. It was a week, and to be honest, it was a great quality time. I really enjoyed it. I came back to high school. I told my friends, hey, I had a great time with my father. Hey, they asked me, where did he take you on vacation? I said, prison. You should have seen their faces. Well, a number of years ago, I started doing this on a much bigger level. I started visiting many of the prisons my father was visiting before. And wow, I saw what kind of work this was. Morning till evening, day after day, visit after visit, drive after drive. I realized, and I thought about something. I said, I'm driving a nice rental car with all the bells and whistles. I have a GPS. I have a phone with unlimited data. I can communicate with my family and friends at any time. I can FaceTime my children, do their homework with them. My father was doing the same thing without any of this, without the GPS, without the phone, without a very good car, to say the least. Wow. And those of you who know that one of the most reliable things in IDOC is the rabbi's visit. He will be there. Rain, snow, sleet, ice, even during coronavirus, the rabbi will be there. So, I hereby presented this award. Now we actually have a very, very special award. That was this is a special picture that was specially made. I don't know if everyone can see it. Abby arranged this. This is a picture of my father going by the Rebbe, getting a blessing before moving to Chicago. Nothing more special than that.
Thank you so much for this tremendous award, 40 years of service. And I wanted to tell you that 40 years, the next time I wake up and I'm going to go to visit someone, it's going to feel like the first time. Why is it going to feel like the first time? Let me tell you why. Our sages teach us that you learn from your masters, you learn even more from your peers, but from the students, you learn the most of all. And every day when I call or get an email or get a text from one of my students who are the clients that have reintegrated into society successfully, it really, really amazes me. And I look with wonder at each and every one of them. And that motivates me. I need to go back in. There are more men and women like them that we need to see on the inside, and we need to turn around. We need to turn into the biggest and best treasures that society has ever seen. My personal mentor, the Rabbi of Lubavitch, emphasizes and teaches that any man and woman, no matter what station in life we find them in, are a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful diamond. They have beautiful stuff deep in the core of their soul. And therefore, I take great pride in the approach that we take at the Hinda Institute. We go into prisons or jails. We visit men and women, mostly Jewish. We also meet those of other denominations, of other faiths, that want to improve their lives, and they identify as Jewish. What do? These humans have unfortunately been put in a position in life where everybody has told them how bad they are. Their parents have told them, their principals, then the police and the judges, their counselors, their peers. They're told how terrible, how useless, and how worthless they are. And when we come in, we first let them know that you are totally missing a different part of you. There's a part of you that's beautiful, that may not have been used ever in your life. And we go in and start doing the polishing process. We go in, we encourage them, we introduce them to that good side of themselves. And then during their incarceration, we slowly but surely give them confidence, and we give them that sense of, I'm going to go out and I'm going to make my family proud. I'm going to make society proud. Obviously, first, they're going to make themselves proud. And we've seen successes time and time and time again. 40 years is wonderful. We, though, are resolving today to continue growing, to do even more and more projects at the Hinda Institute, whether it's in education or family assistance or re-entry, finding jobs, finding different places for people to get counseling and addiction needs, mental health needs, whatever they may need. We want to grow. We want to assist them even more. And we want to be more effective to help more and more turn their lives around. And to all of the listeners and everybody who's tuned in and watching this today, there's a role that you can play as well. I would like everybody to consider opening up their hearts, opening up their minds, going away from stereotyping others, going away from having a judgmental attitude towards those who have once been incarcerated. Instead, open up your hearts and minds. These people have been prepared. They're ready to make their move in life. They're ready to take on their second chance, and they just need a little bit of patience from society. So please give them that patience. Please give them your attention. Please give them the second chance. And to all our supporters and everybody who has helped us, I'd like to bless all of you with great peace in your families and a tremendous amount of health, even in this health crisis. And you should all have plenty of wealth, and more of all, we should merit, all of us, to the coming of Mashiach now. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tati. You knocked it out of the park once again. And I want to bless you that you and Abby, who has become such a wonderful part of our lives, and the Hinda Institute, may you both live very long and healthy lives, and may you see a lot of nachas. Every month, I visit 12 prisons. It's a 3-day trip. Now, this past, just after Pesach, in April, I was scheduled to visit the prisons. But I was thinking, I don't know if this is going to be possible. On a good day, we have challenges. Sometimes they're not prepared. They didn't hear about our visit. They weren't, the paperwork wasn't done and nobody knew we were coming. Sometimes the prison's on lockdown. Sometimes they just have no room for us. There's always issues. So I figured that with the COVID-19 around, they would just tell us that we can't come. And I was prepared. I just wouldn't visit any prisons. So I had a discussion with my father, and I was thinking of alternatives. Maybe we can write everybody a personalized letter. Maybe we can do a video chat with everyone. I don't know. Well, my father gets back to me. He says, you know what? You are going to visit prisons. He said that the chief chaplain, and I'd like to acknowledge all of the amazing chaplains who help us out all year round, and especially Chief Chaplain Willem, always at our aid, really making this possible. So the chief chaplain says, hey, if the mental health professionals who are contractors, if they're allowed to come in the prisons, why should the rabbis not be able to come in? So, sure enough, I was able to visit 6 of the prisons. Now, the trips were a little different. There was a lot less traffic. My temperature was taken at each prison. I was able to, when I came home, I was able to show my children a collection of masks that I picked up at every prison. And certainly those who I visited were so appreciative. They didn't even imagine that we'd be able to come. But I had the following thought on my way home. I'm thinking, hey, I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an essential service provider. What do I do already? I come, I say a few jokes to them. Side point, it's an interesting tradition my father started, was joke of the month. Joke of the month we have to come with. And I have to come with a good one. Sometimes when my presentation is not so good, the guys tell me, oh, your father would say that joke a lot better. So I think, hey, I say some jokes. Am I an essential service provider? But I'm told no. The chief chaplain says, no, you are an essential service provider. You are going to go. So it was so powerful to realize that. So my friends, the Hinda Institute is an essential service provider. And likewise, every single one of you, everybody watching, you are an essential service provider for somebody else. There is somebody out there who is counting on your phone call or your visit, your smile. You can lift up your letter. You can lift them up. You are an essential service provider for somebody else. Now on that visit, one of the guys I was talking to tells me, he says, Rabbi, listen, I was having a conversation with my family. This is about a month and a half ago. He said, I was talking to my family and I say, hey, you're in quarantine, yeah. You're stuck in your house. That must be tough, huh? He says, let me tell you, now that you know what it is a little bit, I want you to put yourself in a 4x8 room, bring a complete stranger in the room with you, take out the internet, stay in that room for 23 hours a day, then you'll know what we feel like. So our next speaker, Sam Horowitz, the Russian concussion, he knows that life, he was there, and he had the fortune of meeting Rabbi Scheiman. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his journey from there to the boxing ring to Hollywood. Everybody listen to this amazing presentation. After Sam's presentation, there's going to be a question and answer session. So hang on there. Sam, take it away.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Scheiman, for inviting me to speak. I hope everybody is safe and healthy and doing their best during these troubling times. And I hope that my story could provide some sense of encouragement to those who may need it. I was raised mostly in Cleveland, Ohio, in a conservative Jewish family. My father and my mother were always very active in the synagogue. My sisters both bat mitzvahed, one of them on the Masada in Israel, and me, it just didn't take. I was always in trouble. I never was able to concentrate. I didn't know what that was at the time. ADD was just becoming a thing, and I was always getting into mischief, and my family was mystified as to what was happening. I got kicked out of Hebrew school when I was a boy for fighting. I was causing trouble in synagogue. I was causing trouble in school. And eventually I was kicked out of Hebrew school, of day school, public school, suspended, eventually expulsion. And my parents, not knowing what to do, they tried to send me away to boarding school, which also didn't work because I was getting in loads of trouble there. So my childhood was spent in and out of treatment centers, institutions, boarding schools, hospitals, juvenile detention centers, and nothing worked. My parents tried to get me to attend synagogue, attend services. I couldn't. I was a troublemaker. I was attracted to it. I didn't know why. I didn't know why I did the things I did. I know that my mother tried her best to help me. I know that my father tried his best. I know that I terrorized my sisters. I know that I have nobody to blame but myself. I come from a good family. I don't have any reason to do the things that I did, but I always found myself in trouble. I always found myself being a bad person and not knowing why. Drugs and alcohol started for me at a young age. And they escalated. They just kept on escalating. From marijuana to cocaine, from cocaine to PCP, from PCP, to harder stuff, which I'll get into. In 2002, when I was just past my 18th birthday, I, along with a few other men, committed an armed robbery and a home invasion outside of Chicago. I was sentenced to 10 years in prison. It was heartbreaking for my family. They were at their wits' end. They didn't know what to do. I wasn't doing anything for myself at that time that was productive. I got in trouble in the county jail. I was arrested while I was in jail for getting into fights. I couldn't get along with other people. My father was able to find a job in California, and my family moved. And I stayed in Illinois, went to prison with a public defender because my parents were just not willing to help me at that time. They didn't give up on me, but they weren't willing to put any more money into trying to save me. I was disconnected from my Jewishness. I didn't think that Jews wanted anything to do with me, and really, I wouldn't expect them to. Not the type of guy I was. So I went to prison. And I flourished in prison. Some people don't take to jail. Some people don't take to prison. Some people don't take to being incarcerated. For me, I was used to it. I spent the majority of my teenage years in and out of institutions, in and out of schools, away from my family, away from my house. I didn't expect anything otherwise, and it wasn't. I made friends. I got into trouble. Drank wine, believe it or not. Did drugs every once in a while. And got into a lot of fights. My prison experience was far worse than it needed to be. I was always in trouble. I was always going to solitary confinement. Out of the 8.5 years total that I spent in prison, I spent over 5 in disciplinary segregation for continuously getting into trouble. But I have one memory of that time that really sticks out to me, and that's 2002 in Shawnee Correctional Center when I was in a strip cell for misbehaving, fighting, getting into trouble, and what that means is all my belongings were taken out of the cell, and I was stripped down. They moved me to a hospital, and I'd become suicidal. Somebody knocked on the door, and I think I had a security blanket, which means a thick blanket that you can't tie to hurt yourself. So I, in my security blanket, walk to the window, and I see a Orthodox rabbi. Didn't know who he was. He introduced himself as Binyomin Scheiman, who went on to become one of my dear friends. And I consider Rabbi Scheiman to be one of the biggest mensches that I know. And the rabbi introduced himself, and he told me that he visits all Jewish inmates that are incarcerated in Illinois. And I found that kind of hard to believe, considering how many prisons there are. But come to find out, he does. His life's mission is to bring Judaism and the Torah and our Jewish roots back to us. Now, at that time, I wasn't ready to take that in. I met him, I said hello, and we talked. He tried to counsel me a bit, and he went about his way, and I went about mine. And the rest of my time in prison was spent in and out of fights and trouble and misery. But one thing that always stuck out is that the rabbi, rain, sleet, or snow, always came to see me. every Passover, I always had food. I always had grape juice. I always had matzah. He always encouraged me to get closer to my Jewish roots. He always encouraged me to read the Chumash and to study and to he gave me a siddur and he prayed with me. A funny memory of those times is when I was in Menard Correctional Center in 2004, behind bars. And I became so disconnected from my Jewishness that I didn't even know what was what. And so the rabbi was teaching me how to don tefillin, and we were doing it together. And when that was going on, I asked him, am I being bar mitzvahed? Because I really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really don tefillin as a child in the conservative synagogue. I wasn't used to that. And the rabbi said, well, yes, it is a bar mitzvah. And he was making one of his jokes, one of his Rabbi Scheiman jokes that everybody knows and grows to love, his personality and his humor. And so that was our relationship. And so I eventually got out of segregation, and I attended some small get-togethers and occasional services with the other Jewish inmates when the rabbi would come. And it always just brightened my day. It always uplifted me. And anyways, I eventually got out, of course. Lost, not expecting to do anything with my life. And that's exactly what happened. I got into trouble, and I ended up going right back to prison. I was out for a few months. I went to go get a job as a personal trainer. I thought, hey, maybe I could be a personal trainer. Maybe I could do something positive. I'm kind of fit. I enjoyed working out in prison. Maybe I could teach other people how to work out. And I really believed it. I really thought that I was going to be able to do something. And the rabbi reached out to me when I got out, and I kind of stayed away from him because I didn't want to bring my negativity onto him, because I tried to get a regular job at first, and they looked at my application and they denied me. And it was heartbreaking. It really hurt me. And I gave up on myself. So I didn't want to talk to the rabbi. I didn't want to bring myself to see him. I didn't think there was anything that could be done for me. And I ended up hanging out with the wrong people. I got back involved with gangs. I got back involved with drugs. I got back involved with crime. And I ended up going back to prison for another 3 years. And I got out, and it was more the same. And I thought to myself, this is going to be my life. I'm going to be in and out of prison. Maybe I'll get myself killed. I'm going to be a low-life gang member, drug addict, somebody who my family is afraid of, somebody that is a disappointment. I really thought that was going to be me. And I embraced it. So during that second time in prison, Rabbi Scheiman visited me quite a bit. And small things started to change. I started paying attention to what he was saying. I started really looking forward to his visits. And when I got out, I can't say things went right into the right direction, because I did get back into drugs. I did get back, into the gangs. I did get back into the trouble. Thankfully, I stayed out of jail. My best friend died in 2011 of a drug overdose, and I was right behind him. I overdosed 3 times on heroin. I was literally flatlined in the hospital. My friend was told when he brought me to the hospital, completely unconscious, that he shouldn't have high hopes for me being resuscitated, because not many people my coloring have been able to come back. But they did get me. They did get me back. They did bring me back. And that was a turning point for me. I was able to get off of drugs, stay away from the alcohol. I started making more frequent visits to the Chabad in Des Plaines, helping the rabbi when he was packaging macaroons, keeping in contact, going to services every so often at the Chabad, and staying connected. And that was important to me because through it all, I'm a Jew. And that's important to me. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I had always been athletic, so I started boxing. And most people were telling me, you're too old to box. You can't become a professional boxer now. But I tried. I had 18 amateur boxing fights. They called me the Russian concussion because my family is from Russia, extended family. And so I took that name and I put a Star David on my trunks and I turned professional. I like to think of myself as a throwback to the Jews in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s that were fighters, that were boxers. There was world champions at that time. I did my studying and I saw the history of the Jewish people back in those times. The tough Jews that fought for what they wanted, what they believed in, and I wanted to be one of those guys. So I loved it. I had a relatively short boxing career. I had 13 fights. I fought in Boston. I fought in Philadelphia. I fought in Indiana. I fought in Las Vegas at Mandalay Bay. And I was always proud when I walked into the ring with my Star David on Horowitz across my trunks. I won more than I lost. I took quite a few punches. I relied on a granite chin, which didn't always hold up, and a hard right hand. I wasn't the greatest fighter, but I was tough, and I was proud, and I had pride. But eventually I knew boxing would run its course, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And thankfully, I was introduced to the world of television through my boxing promoter. And essentially what happened is I got an opportunity to double an actor in a scene in a TV show in Chicago, and I couldn't believe that this was something that I could actually do for a living. But I pursued it. I learned how to do stunts. And as a stunt person, I'm the guy that gets killed on film. I'm the guy that gets shot on film. I'm the guy that is the double for the actor doing his dirty work and getting paid for it. And I loved it. I found that I was doing things on camera that I had done in real life, but nobody knew it but me. Oh, go run up and you're going to run up and you're going to shoot this guy. Well, I loved it. Now, I never shot anybody in real life, but I certainly was about to. I certainly was in that lifestyle. I certainly knew what it took to do these type of things. And so I flourished at stunts. It's a hard job to get. It's a harder job to stay in because it's very difficult to get work. But I was able to do it. I met my wife. She's also an actor. She's also Jewish. And together we decided that we were going to come to Los Angeles. It was a big move. A lot of people don't make it because it's very hard to get work out here. It's very hard to have a career in Los Angeles as a working actor, as a working performer. But we had confidence that we would. So 2.5 years ago we came out, and I did build a career out here. And over the last 2 years, I've worked on over 25 different television shows, movies, commercials. As a guy that does quite a bit of fighting, I specialize in fighting on TV. And it's something that I took from prison, then the boxing ring, and now I do it as make-believe, and I make a living doing it. Through stunts, I started writing some of my own experiences. I wrote a play about drugs, about abuse in Chicago. And I got the play produced in Los Angeles earlier this year before COVID-19. It was a very proud moment in my life. So I went from a degenerate to a prisoner to a drug addict to a boxer to a stuntman to a playwright. And now I find myself writing more and more and more, and that is the path that I have taken in my career, to become a screenwriter. And so I say all this because none of this could have been possible if I hadn't changed my life. I don't know what would have happened if I never met the rabbi. I don't think things would have turned out quite the same. He's an extraordinary individual. He's somebody that has helped me so much. He's always stayed connected with me. He's never given up on me. And he never gives up on any Jew. And the Hinda Institute is so important for the work that they do because Rabbi Scheiman is single-handedly kept Jews connected for over 30 years. 40 years! It's amazing. So Rabbi, thank you so much for everything that you've done for me. I hope that my short, abridged story of my life has helped in some way inspire people. I continue to do the things that I love. I hope that once we get past this virus and we're able to get together again, that more work can be done. I hope all of you have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.
Hello. I'd like to thank you, Sam. That was a great job that you did. And now we're going to be open for questions and answers. If anybody would like to send a question, go to hindahelps.com/event, and there'll be a place where you can put in your question. And me and Sam will do the best that we could do to continue the conversation. At the same time that you're there, you can view the journal. The virtual journal will be at the same link.
Sam, if you could tell released offenders only one thing, what would it be? I would tell people don't give up on yourself. To the guys and women that get incarcerated, that get locked up and then they get out, I would just say don't give up on yourself. Don't quit. Because you'll always wonder what happened if you didn't quit.
There's a question that came in, Rabbi, what inspired you to do these programs? And actually it started 40 years ago when I came to Chicago. I had never gone to a prison. And within 3 weeks of me moving from New York to Chicago, a call came into our office and said, I have a friend whose son got in trouble with the law. It's Passover time. Can you get him matzah and grape juice? I'd never been to a prison, but I called up the Joliet prison. I spoke to the chaplain, and he said I could bring down the matzah and grape juice, and I did. And over the next few months, different people kept coming in. Calls came into the Lubavitch Chabad headquarters, and Rabbi Moskowitz kept giving these calls to me, and it was about one person in trouble, another person in trouble, and there's something that just touched my soul about dealing with these individuals, these fellow Jews, men and women, juveniles, and I just became very inspired by dealing with them. And I made a decision in my heart that I want to make sure. At that time, there was no chaplaincy, Jewish chaplaincy going on in the state. There had been in the 60s and the 70s, but by the time the 80s come, most of the rabbis stopped the work. And I made a decision to see every single Jew throughout the state. And that's what I've been doing. And not only did I continue doing it myself, but when I reached my capacity, I bit the bullet. I went and did the plunge and said, I'm going to hire other people. And therefore, my son Schneier, who is the MC today, and my son Mendel, who is producing this event down in Carbondale, Illinois, and my son Chaim, who goes to Cook County Jail every week and works with those on the outside. They are all continuing the work, expanding the work, and we hope to grow even more. And my wife, Abby, is working on different educational programs and lending libraries. So we're expanding and spraying to all fields.
Question for me, what was my inspiration, the impetus to change my life? Well, I've had quite a few inspirations, over the years. I think initially, something that drastically changed my life was the death of my best friend. He was the most important person in my life at the time. and he died of a drug overdose. And it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to get me to stop using drugs at that time. I still continued, but that struck a chord with me. And moving forward from that, shortly thereafter, I just didn't want to be a, for lack of a better word, I didn't want to be a loser anymore. I wanted to try to do something. So I just set out to do it. And people like the rabbi motivated me. People like my father motivated me. People that are not criminals and that live a good life and do the right things motivate me. And that's part of the inspiration for me.
Okay, I have a question that came in. It says, Rabbi, how has your prison experience and understanding of the lives of the detainees and inmates shaped your life? Well, it certainly has taught me for instance, let me give you an example. I go to the synagogue and pray every day, and you should see the little petty things that people argue about. Open the windows, close the windows. You're talking too loud. That person talks too much. People don't even realize that they're arguing about such silly things and how blessed their lives are. Because when I visit the detainees and I visit the clients that are serving time, they're serving years, it really, they have real big problems in life. They have addiction problems. Are they safe in prison? Their families are very dysfunctional. I'm dealing with people that have very, very deep-seated problems. And then when I come back to quote unquote regular, ordinary Jewish people in the free world, I almost laugh at the things that people are squabbling about. And so it gives me that perspective where I could tell the guys that I hang around in the world, say, could you guys just take it easy? This is no reason to get at each other. We have to be closer to each other. We have to show more love to each other because there's really, really people with bigger problems. And I've also seen, I'm able to then take experiences, hear how and see how people have turned their lives around, like Sam and like Zach that we honored today, and able to tell people you could change too. And you don't have to go to prison your rock bottom could be, just your one little mistake that you made. So it gives me that ability to relate to the younger people these days that are struggling through life. And I can give them a view and a perspective that they may not hear from other people that they have in their lives.
How does my family celebrate / preserve Judaism? Well, this year, because of COVID-19, for example, and my family's extended out to New York City and California, Los Angeles, all over, we had a virtual Seder on Zoom. So we all got together and we had a Seder, my wife and I here, and my sister and my brother-in-law and niece and nephew at their house, and my mother and father at their house. And that's how we celebrate and preserve Judaism for our family during this time. And in normal times, just as a normal family would. So, we're no more special than any other Jewish family in that we do the same things that everybody else does, except we're not ultra Orthodox, of course.
A question came in. Rabbi, were you ever scared of any of the clients that you needed to see? Well, I always hearken back to a teaching from the founder of the Hasidic movement, the Baal Shem Tov. And we know that he was orphaned as a very, very young boy. And his father told him two things. He said, one, never be afraid of anybody but God Almighty. And number two, love every single person. So with that in mind, when I go into any of these environments, I know that Hashem, that God has my back, that he's with me. And yes, the chaplains and the officers will tell me, you're in a super maximum security prison. You're going to SEG. You're going to a severely, a person with great mental problems in the mental health facility, and they could be dangerous. So I know they could be, but I am not afraid of any of them because there is a piece of them inside that I am looking to touch. And that part is beautiful in all of them. So no, I am not scared of any of them. And thank God I see one and all, and I bring out that little piece of humanity in them by not being scared of them.
Who and what programs helped me get through the drug addiction? Well, I am still a part of a program. I'm a part of a 12-step program, and kind of part of the creed of that program is it's about attraction rather than promotion. So I don't talk about it. It's not something I talk about, but I am a part of a very well-known 12-step program, the most well-known 12-step program for alcoholism and drug addiction that is known. So you don't have to really think too hard about it. And I stay connected to that as well. And that's something that has helped me for the last 7.5 years, over 7.5 years, to stay sober, along with spirituality.
There was a question that came in and wants to know how, Rabbi, do you deal with anti-Semitism that comes from prison guards or inside the prisons? And well, I think this is a very sad topic. We don't just deal with it in the prisons. We see in the last few days, there's even looting and different things. Sometimes there are Jewish stores, and I think in LA there were stories of Jewish areas being attacked. So there is anti-Semitism out there, not just in the prisons, but also on the streets. I think what we demand of the prison chaplains and wardens and officials is that they follow the federal, they follow the state law, they keep their professionalism. We know that the people inside the prison, certainly in some of the smaller towns in Southern Illinois, we know going in, they're probably not familiar with Jews. They're probably not very fond of Jews and haven't heard nice things about Jews. We only ask them, again, stay professional. These are the laws. You have to let us see the men. You have to treat people with respect. So, we suspect that, when I go in, I suspect behind my back, there may be some people speaking or saying things, even the chaplains, even the officials. However, I find that if I carry myself in a professional way and I speak not out of anger, but I speak directly to them and go to the points, they earn enough respect, and they know that, if I need to go to a governor or a senator or some other officials outside the prisons to straighten something out, or a lawsuit. I even believe Sam had a story where he himself had an incident, an anti-Semitic incident inside the prison. There was a law group which took up his case, and Sam actually won the case. And so once those things happen, they gain a little respect, they back off, and they at least treat myself and my clients with the due respect that they're needed.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, when I was, the 8 years, 7 months, and 15 days I was in prison, I experienced anti-Semitism from staff and inmates alike. It's just a common thing. I remember the rabbi coming to see me in 2005 in Stateville, and I would hear, you had some inmates that were jeering and screaming at him, and the rabbi, it was such a proud moment for me, because the rabbi just holds his head high and walked along. It didn't let him, he didn't let that affect him. In the same token, around the same time, I had my chai necklace taken from me from staff, and there was a big fight, and that's what he was referring to. That so these things happen, and the rabbi deals with it like a professional and somebody with pride and no ego, and gets through it. What would I say to a kid that's in the same situation that I was in? I would say it could get a lot better, or it could get a lot worse. I would say, I would ask that person, what does he want? And because if he wants things to improve, it could definitely improve, and he can make his life so much better by doing the right things, and by getting, by aligning himself with good people and with the right people, and changing his mindset. Or things could get a lot worse or stay the same. but there's always a choice. So I would ask that person, what they wanted to do and what choice they wanted to make. And I would encourage them to follow that.
Okay, now there's a question that came in. Rabbi, how to encourage people to see their beautiful and good side when they have poor self-image of themselves? And like the old saying, it's been printed many times, number one, God don't make no junk. And the Rebbe once, said, what's a birthday? A birthday is the day that God decided that the world needs you, particularly you. Any individual has something that nobody else has, and that's why he was created by God. So whatever time we meet an individual in life and they may have a poor self-image of themselves, they have a poor image of themselves, we have to remind them that there is something about you. There is something special about you. And again, you may not be able to convince the person of that right away. Sometimes it takes weeks, months, or years of hammering home the same point. And when we see an individual do something, it's the same thing with parents and children. If the parents are always screaming and yelling at the child and never tell him when he does something good, of course, that's not going to help. So even parents and friends, when somebody does something good, make sure you acknowledge it, make sure to pick up on it, and make sure, and again, it's something that takes a long, long time sometimes. And there's an additional question that came in. How can the Jewish community or other communities support our Black brothers and sisters right now? So I think that, Jewish people have always been at the head of all the civil rights movements and all movements to protect human rights across the world. And that's because the Jewish people were slaves many years ago in Egypt. We just celebrated the holiday of Passover. We were slaves for many years, and over and over and over in the Torah, it tells us that be kind to the stranger, be kind to the person, the orphan, be kind to the widow, because you were once slaves. You know what it's like. So therefore, we have this ability now to reach out to our Black brothers and sisters. And if they are we know what harassment is. We know, like the stories I'm telling you from inside the prison, we know what it means to be targeted. We know what it means to be picked on. And just as we could be proud with ourselves, we could stand with others and say, society needs to treat people properly, like humans. Humans have to treat others with humanity. Take off their names, take off whatever gender they are, whatever color they are, where they come from. And we just have to all live together. If COVID-19 has not taught us anything, it's that there's bigger things to fight. This is almost just very disappointing that when we have this illness came in the world and there's still people fighting like this just underscores that we have more work to do. But this is the work that has to be done. We are all brothers and sisters of the same God in heaven, and we have to bond together and fight together to beat illnesses and bigger problems, not fighting with each other.
And just to say, I just want to say unequivocally, I support Black people, period, and the struggle that's going on with African Americans in this country, and the racism that's still going on in our country is terrible and horrible. And the only thing that I can do is support them and be by their side, because it's a terrible thing that's still happening. And all I can do is support them in any way possible, because it's egregious, the type of violations that are still happening in our country to Black people. It makes me sick. And my advice to a question came in. My advice to a parent with a child who behaved like me. I hope not. I hope you don't have a kid that behaved like me. But on the poor luck that you do, I would say my advice to you is just don't give up on them. Just don't give up on them. Doesn't mean you have to financially pay for them. It doesn't mean you have to continuously give them money, but just don't give up on them. Tough love never really worked for me, but there's no right or wrong here. It's just don't give up on your child. That's all. That's all. That's the only advice I would give you. And you know, if you need to pull back from them, that's one thing. But don't give up on them. And I just want to say to close out for me, thank you so much, Rabbi Scheiman, for giving me this honor to speak, you know, on your behalf as well, and tell my story. I appreciate all you who watched. I really do appreciate it, and thank you so much. I hope that I helped somebody. Thank you.
And I'd like to conclude again with blessing everybody. We cannot do the work we do without the great support from the community. And I think over 40 years, the Hinda Institute has made a dent in the way people in the world, in Chicago, and maybe further places, actually look at fellow humans, fellow Jews who made a mistake, but turn around their lives. And we should continue again to have, and that's again, what we see the last few days going on in the world. It's not just what we have to do for each other. We have to all bring this peace to the world. We have to bring this calm to the world, and we have to understand each other more. And may we go from strength to strength at the Hinda Institute, and all of you be blessed with health, with wealth, and of course, Mashiach now, and an end to all the craziness.